Today, I want to share with you my own thoughts and observations, spending some time in Iloilo, Bacolod, Cebu City. Maybe you've been thinking about switching cities or you've not been to the Philippines, and this might be a little bit of a heads up as far as what you might be able to expect in general with these different cities. So maybe you'll want to give them a visit. Who knows? Maybe you'll even want to relocate. Now, the first thing I'll say is that there's not one city that's great for everybody. And that's the question I usually get. What's the best city to live in the Philippines? But it really depends on what you are looking for, you in particular. Some guys want to be in the big city. Some guys want to be in a tiny little podunk town that hasn't got much. They just want some peace and quiet. They don't want to run into expats. Then you got the mid-sized cities, the beach cities, and then there are a few mountain cities that some guys check out, like Baguio and Valencia. We won't go into all of those, of course, but I'll share with you my observations on Iloilo, Bacolod, and Cebu City. Now, my wife and I, we caught a direct flight from Cebu City to Iloilo. I had already set up an Airbnb right near the Sena Hotel, I believe it is. Not at the Sena Hotel, but like very close to there. Very nice condo, good hot water pressure, the whole 9 yards. We were very comfortable, very happy there. And so we stayed for a week. The positives, I would say, with Iloilo City is I found it to be very organized. You had real street lights, real sidewalks. There were plenty of places to eat, the usual franchises, but in addition to that, with the two major malls that they have there, there's other smaller malls as well. You could find pretty much any kind of food you wanted. I even found a place, I believe it was called House of Monkeys, and it's a keto restaurant, which was great because I think I ate there like 5 times. They had just a whole menu of keto-oriented dishes. So that was a really nice surprise. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind about Iloilo is, again, you can get a direct flight there from Cebu. It is what I would consider more of an upscale type city, maybe even a little more so than Cebu. But that also means that the prices, at least from what I could see, were just maybe a little bit higher at the restaurants. For instance, now again, this is not going to, it depends on what restaurants you go to, but we went to a Vietnamese restaurant and the two of us had bun bo hui. We had 2 orders of spring rolls and then some drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, but drinks. And the total was about $38 US dollars. Now that's considered high in the Philippines. Now on the dating realm, I noticed that a lot of the Filipinas fell into one of 2 groups. A big portion of them are university attendees. They're college students. There were just so many of them. So education seems to be pretty important in Iloilo. And you also notice, not just in the malls, but just out on the street, that many of the Filipinos are what you might call upper middle class, which would be considered rich in the Philippines by Philippine standards. So if you plan on dating in Iloilo, I would say that you're gonna need to really kind of have your act together. As it is, usually upper middle class Filipinas that are still living with their parents, the parents are not going to be too keen on their daughter dating an expat to begin with. There's a whole stigma that goes with that. However, that's not to say that you couldn't date in Iloilo or even date one of these upper middle class Filipinas. It's just that you can't roll into town disheveled, wearing yesterday's laundry, ill-shaven, booze on your breath, haven't combed your hair, never heard of cologne. I mean, you can't just roll in like that and expect Filipinas to warm up to you. They know that at some point, if they were to get in a relationship with you, they got to present you to their parents. So those kind of guys just aren't going to stand a chance. If you want to stand a chance, then you got to do the exact opposite. Dress nicely, present yourself well, wear a little cologne, comb your hair, stay clean shaven, have some manners, and take things slow. That would be my recommendation if you plan on dating in Iloilo. Now, I mentioned they fall into two different groups. So there's that group, and then there's the other group, which is all the Filipinos who are not going to college, who are working a job, they're working in the malls, they're working in the small stores and the bakeries and such. So don't get the impression that it's all a bunch of rich girls in Iloilo and you don't stand a chance. There's plenty of other non-middle class Filipinas that might be a bit more open to the idea of dating an expat, similar to what you would find in any other island. Now, as I mentioned, the cost of living can be higher there. It's a fairly big city, and if you were going to live there full time, I would recommend one of two things. Either have your own motorcycle or just kind of allocate 70 to maybe $100 a month and just take Grab everywhere. We took Grab for the week that we were there. I don't even think we spent $25. So you can get around Iloilo very easily using Grab or a motorcycle if you're living there long term. Now, also with cost of living, even though the restaurants had very good service, very good food, and were a little bit pricey, we had a pretty good deal with our Airbnb, but just taking a casual look at the rental prices, they were actually fairly competitive. You're not going to get a $100 apartment in Iloilo, but you could get a decent place anywhere from $200 to $350. Again, different people, their standards vary, but if you have no problem paying $400, I don't think you're going to have much problem finding a decent place to stay in Iloilo. So after our week that we spent there, we then took the ferry across the water to Bacolod. And we initially had planned on spending 2 weeks there. We enjoyed it so much that we actually extended about another week and a half. Now, Bacolod, the layout of the city it's sort of an L shape. You have a long main drag, which is Laxon or Loxon, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's named after the family there, the sugarcane family. Anyways, Loxon Boulevard or Avenue, whatever that is, that's the main big long drag that the entire city is kind of built around. And then, like I said, it's an L shape. So then at one point it turns, I believe, east, and there's a whole nother part of the city there. I only spent a little bit of time over there. Most of the time I spent along the Loxon Boulevard. Now here's the great thing. They have a shuttle system with these mini buses that you can just go out to anywhere on Loxon Street and they will come by within 2 minutes or less. They're just constantly going all the way up and all the way down in a circle all day long, and you can catch it for 15 pesos. You can easily get to two of the major malls, the Ayala and the SM, for just 15 pesos. And what I found was many times I would go out to the street, wait for the little short bus or mini bus, whatever you want to call it, the shuttle, and if one of those didn't come along, a jeepney came along and did the exact same thing for 11 pesos. The only difference being that the shuttle buses, the short buses, those are air conditioned. So for an extra 4 pesos, you get air conditioning. Another great thing about Bacolod that we loved anyway is without even trying, we found 4 really good Vietnamese food restaurants. In fact, the very first meal we had as soon as we arrived from the pier was some Vietnamese food there at the SM Mall, the food court. I would say that the Bacolod food scene is actually more varied and perhaps even better service than what you'll find in Cebu City, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of food in Cebu City. But for us, the time we spent in Bacolod kind of turned into a foodie vacation. We were trying just all different types of restaurants and bistros. We found a nice little steakhouse. We found Vietnamese food. I mean, there was just more restaurants there than we could even fit into our 2.5 weeks. Gio happens to live there in Bacolod, so we got to hang out a lot. We found this, he knew of it, but we went to this place that had the best tacos. And I mean the best tacos I have probably had in the Philippines since 2012. These were very authentic, homemade tortillas, marinated meats. I mean, it was very, very good. I also found a very good Mandarin Chinese place as well that I really enjoy. And similar to Iloilo, they also have Grab, which, if you want food delivery from any of these really great restaurants, makes it easy peasy. So combined between the Grab availability to get around away from Locsin Boulevard and the shuttle buses that get you up and down the whole town, it's really a very convenient, easy place to live, even if you don't have a motorcycle. Now, a friend of mine was actually in the process of moving to Bacolod, not Geo, but another friend of mine, and he's single, and so he's, getting into the whole dating scene. And, in general, what he told me was that he had no problem finding dates. Now, again, it's your mileage may vary kind of a thing. Whenever you go out dating, yeah, some are going to work out, some are not, some are compatible with your life goals, some are not. But in general, he said that he really wasn't having trouble lining up dates. And, this is a guy that probably goes out with about anywhere from 4 to maybe 8 women in a given month. So, as far as dating goes, it's not a problem, very plentiful, very open to expats. So, you can take that for what it's worth. And also similar to Iloilo, we got just the nicest Airbnb with great hot water pressure. That's a big thing for me. I just love relaxing with a nice hot shower. We stayed at a place called, I believe it was Miravilla, and they have a swimming pool, although they did charge like 150 pesos every time you wanted to use it. But no big deal. The cost of living is a little lower in Bacolod than it would be maybe in Iloilo. Now, maybe some of you who have lived in both long term could contribute some rents that you've paid. But again, it's not just about the rent amount, it's what you get for that amount. So some guys might be paying $300 rent in one city, but not getting a very nice place. Whereas the same $300 in another city gets a different guy a nicer place. So it's really not all about the money. It's the quality of living amenities you get with that rental amount. Bacolod also seems to be kind of leaning towards the whole art district. They have a little mini art district, but in general, you kind of get the feeling that the university's there, and they have like a strong presence. There's coffee bistros. You'll often see students in the coffee shops and whatnot. There's also, similar to Iloilo, a lot of, what we would call middle upper class people. Not everybody, of course. My one perhaps pet peeve with Bacolod is that because everything is on Locsin, the majority of things are on Locsin Boulevard, they do have intersections with lights and all that. However, to get across the street as a pedestrian, they have these painted lines in the street. Every single time I cross the street there, the cars just really, they're more interested in getting across the road before you finish. They just don't seem to stop. And so that I found a little disturbing. Making a left turn on a motorcycle there onto the main boulevard. Also, you're just gonna have to really exercise a little bit of courage to get that accomplished. But overall, V and I we liked Iloilo and Bacolod. We liked both of them, but we kind of liked Bacolod a little bit more. It just seemed a bit more spacious, a little less congested, a bit more relaxing, and far more food choices. So I'll wrap up with Cebu City. Now, if you haven't been to Cebu City, maybe it's because you've just not been to the Philippines yet, but a lot of guys have found, myself included, I far more prefer to land at the Cebu airport rather than the Manila airport. Manila is very congested and such. Cebu is simply an easier city to transition to when you're making your first visit to the Philippines. It has plenty of malls over in the IT Park area and the Ayala Business Center Park, plenty of restaurants and all this, ATMs, everything you would need. So Cebu is a very good first visit city. And we still love visiting Cebu any chance we can get. Again, there's a lot of food that they have there that they don't have on Bohol, which is where we spend most of our time. The only thing that doesn't fit in for us as a couple is that we prefer to live in the province. And there really isn't any province area in Cebu City that you can rent a place out at. So if you're going to live in Cebu City, just resign yourself to the fact that you're going to be living in a condo. Now, they have many condos. I would say there's at least a dozen or more, and each one with many units. So it just depends if you want to be near the IT park area or the Ayala Business Center. But I can recommend Solania. We were very happy there for a year. Really enjoyed it. Nice place. But if you're going to live in Cebu City, just accept the fact that you're in a city. It's not going to be province. You're not going to see trees and coconuts and mangoes growing on the side of the road. For that, you would probably be better off living at Bohol or Panglao, where there are just trees everywhere and beaches and such. So I hope that gives you just kind of an overall thumbnail. Maybe you can look at that and determine which aspects mean the most to you. And really, the only way you're going to know for sure is I would recommend book 1 or 2 weeks. You could book a week and always extend it, but spend 1 or 2 weeks at Iloilo, and then over at Bacolod, and then over at Cebu City, and then you'll see what appeals to you in particular.